Hello writers and welcome to Writing for Screens, today's live stream episode, writing my novel number 19, Small Spiral Steps. My name is Glenn Gers and I am the Chief Operating Everything at Writing for Screens, a channel in which I have tried to take the various skills and tools and techniques and insights that I gained in a 25-year career writing for TV and movies, trying to get those down into some simple, short videos that I can leave behind on my way out of the business. The main way that you can find these lessons is here on the channel. This is the channel main page. If you've never been there, take a look at it. If you scroll down, you'll see down at the bottom, there's these playlists. Here's a closer view. The first three playlists, as you scroll down, are Screenwriting Essentials, Screenwriting Tools, Skills, Craft, and The Process, Being a Writer. Okay, these three playlists contain about 50 10-minute videos, 10-ish minutes, each on a single topic. The topic could be character, genre, dialogue, the instinct, thinking in scenes, whatever it is, it'll be there on the thumbnail in bright colors and big words so that you can sort through them and try these different short lessons on a single topic. What I've tried to do is boil down all the different things I had to teach myself as I was learning to do screenwriting and as I was working in the business. These are not, there's no system, there's no order that you have to watch them in. They're just things that might be helpful to you, and you need to think about whether or not they work for you, because there is no single right way to do art. There is no such thing as the universal goal. There is no such thing as the universal process or structure. You got to figure it out for yourself. Every writer must find their own path, which means all I can do is tell you the things that I discovered, things that worked for me, things that don't work for me, but I've heard about other people doing, drop them out for you to look and try for yourself. Then you have to decide, does this work for me? Does this not work for me? That's what this channel is all about, trying to give you some useful stuff to use in your making of your own path. Because everyone has different goals, everyone has different style, everyone has their brain that works a different way. So you need to figure out for yourself. There is no right way, there is no wrong way. There are things that work better or not, and there are ways to figure it out. That's what I'm trying to give you here. So that's my intro. If you get past those short lesson videos and you want more, these live streams are every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone, which is going to be changing shortly on the Daylight Savings Time. 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Wednesdays. I take on a different topic every week, and that's what we're going to be doing today. First, I'm going to do some hellos because I got a bunch of people saying hi. Hi, Nathan. Hello, Doreen and Donna and Sonia. Hasco, not the pirate. Burgundy, hello. And Pelicans, hey. John Frey, good afternoon to you. And Ricky. Okay, hello, hello, hello. Okay, let's get right to this so that I will be open to have some time for questions later. This topic, small spiral steps in the process of writing my novel. This particular series of live streams is a little progress report from the front line. Every 2 or 3 weeks, I take some time to tell you what I've learned about myself and my process while I am trying to write a novel. I wrote a novel 20, 30 years ago. I have now retired from screenwriting and have the chance to write another novel. I am truly struggling, but in a good way. And so I want to share that in case it's of any use to any of you. Hello, Bastian. First time I am live with you. Hello from Italy. Hello to Italy from here in the USA. Okay, so let's talk about this particular question of tiny spiral steps. Because what I've been doing is going through my rough, just throwing down any kind of garbage I could, rough draft. I have a complete outline and a complete really rough draft. So now what I need to do is turn that rough draft into a readable first draft. It's not even that at the moment. It's a pile of ideas. I'll probably show you some of that later. It's a lot of pages. It's like 300 pages of rough garbage. So in order to make it make sense, since I do now, I have an outline, I know exactly what every scene is supposed to accomplish. What I'm doing now is going through, picking a scene and saying, okay, let me look at this mess and just try to sort it out a little. Most days, if I do an hour of that, that's, and I'll do a couple hours of research or something else. But most of the time, if I sit down and do an hour, I'm feeling like I had a good step. But it's a tiny step. It's just one little, a few paragraphs. What I am trying to remind myself, and what is actually feeling very clear, is even tiny steps are still steps. The fact is, if you keep making one paragraph better, at a certain point, you will have a readable first draft. And that is my goal. And the thing is, if you keep doing it, if every day you do a little bit, you begin to get this momentum. You begin to get this sense, especially once you've done it more than once, that this will work. Even though anyone else looking at it would say, I don't understand what the hell you think you're doing here. But as I go through scene by scene and just fix up a little section of it, I begin to get that feeling of momentum of, yes, this can become a readable, workable novel. So the most important thing I want to talk about today is this concept that even tiny steps are still steps. And if you take a step for ideally every day, you will get something done. I think a lot about Sidney Lumet in his book it's called Making Movies, Sidney Lumet, talking about directing movies. And he's talking about how directing movies is essentially like making a mosaic, in that every shot, every scene is one little tile in a large mosaic. And the real job of the day at any given time when you're directing a movie is to get that particular tile to look as good as it can for what it is. That yellow tile does not have to be a blue tile that's going to be in the sky of the eventual picture. You just need to get that yellow tile to be the right type of yellow and the right polish and the right shape. And then you finish that and you move on to the other tiles. That's not that different from what I'm finding about writing a novel. If I think of this novel, this outline, a couple hundred different little scenes, each one of those, if you can just get that scene to work, and then you get the other scenes to work, and then you put them together like with a mosaic, it will create a big picture. And ideally, that picture will be working for the audience first as a picture, as a whole, and then also all the work you did per tile means each tile will give its own pleasure. That's what I believe. That's what I'm experiencing. That's what I want to pass on to you when you're working and you're feeling like, oh, I can't do this. Do remember that if you continue taking tiny steps, one tile at a time, bird by bird, as the book says, Annie, oh gosh, I can't remember her name. There's a book called Bird by Bird about writing that is the same basic concept. And I think that one of the things that I wanted to talk about is having confidence in that process, even though it may be incredibly intimidating what you're trying to take on. The process of building it tile by tile, piece by piece, will work. I'm old. I've been working for a long time. The thing is, writing this novel is new for me. I have never done anything like it. I wrote one novel 30 years ago. It was very much the same process, but that was autobiographical. That novel was entirely about my own life. So all I had to do was capture what I had experienced. In this case, I've added the challenge that I'm writing a historical novel about art, so painting. And so there's a lot of things that I don't know about. So I can't just say, oh, what's it like to have that experience? Because I don't know what it's like to be a painter in 1936. So I'm adding a layer of difficulty for myself, which has been very difficult. But this process, I'm going to talk about the 3 S's. This is a thing I'm making up just today. Small steps, which I count as 1 S, even though there's two S's, actually 3 S's. And then the spiral process going around and around, and the snowball effect. So let's talk about this. Basically, if you are taking small steps, for instance, I am going through my novel is in 4 basic large sections. And the first section has about, I guess, 30 or so major scenes. So what I'm doing is going through them scene by scene. I'm looking at my document as I talk to you. So I'm looking at these 30 scenes, and I'll have a scene in which the main character, the narrator, who is not a painter, is trying to pretend to be a painter and live amongst this group of painters. So there's several sections in which he's describing what this world is like and what it's like for him to try and get into it. And I have a rough sense of from my research what I want to convey about the world. Plus, I'm trying to convey the particular artistic milieu at the time, which was very political, because it was in the depths of the Depression, and people became very political at the time. There was a true sense of revolution and crisis. And at the same time, there was a crisis within painting itself. So I wanted to discuss those ideas progressing through the book. So that's the challenge, is that I'm trying to both tell a story and yet in the course of this story sneak in or use as part of the story these ideas about modern art. So I have this one section where I first introduced the idea that there's groups of artists with different artistic theories. So I just wrote in the outline, like, Tom, meets these groups of artists. Described the surrealists, the what are called social realists, the what are called pure abstractionists. And so now I'm like, okay, so I wrote down, like, okay, pure abstractionists, and he has to get a bit about the surrealists. Eventually, I have to actually stop and write what he knows and sees and perceives about these groups of people. It's a small step, just figuring out which groups I'm going to describe, and then each step of, like, okay, what am I going to say about the surrealists? I've done research on the surrealists. I have maybe 30 pages of research. How am I going to condense that down to 2 or 3 paragraphs? That's my tile for that mission. So that's the thing. But if I take those tiny steps, if one day I just type 3 pages worth of thoughts about the surrealists down, the next day I come around and I come back to it and I say, this 3 pages is way too long. How can I cut it? How can I focus it on Tom's experience at the moment? Get it down to 2 pages. Okay, that's a tiny step. But if I do it every day, there is this the spiral effect. Like I've talked about the idea that if you try and perfect one thing, at least I personally can't get it all at once. But if I do it, then I move on to another section. Then a few days later, I come back to it. If I spiral around, getting a little closer every time I come around, it gets a little better. Every time I come around to it, and I have to do it over and over, it gets a little better. And eventually it begins to actually get to, like, oh, this is, I'm beginning to find the voice of it. I'm beginning to find the actual single point of this tile. When you do that, it creates this snowball effect. It creates this effect of that it's building up size and momentum as it's rolling down. The snowball effect, meaning a snowball rolling down a big snowy mountain, will get larger as it collects new pieces until it's moving faster and faster and more inevitably. That's, at least for me, the experience of working on a large project. Let me just briefly get some quick hellos, since we've got some hellos here. I'm not wearing the yellow shirt. I am. This is yellow. Well, it's orangey yellow. Anne Lamott, thank you. Anne Lamott wrote the book Bird by Bird. Hello, Wolf Powers. Hello, Bastian. It is a very powerful attitude to see a small step as something good. Yes, this is the point. The issue is to discount any step, to think it is meaningless and not like progress at all. That's the problem. That's the bad thing, is if you look at your step, you say, oh, that's not a worthwhile step. That's not a valuable step. That's when you're in trouble. The only way I know to work. Now, other people may feel differently, but for me, learning to love the small steps, learning to love the smallness of the small steps. And maybe, as the spiral gets things better and as the snowball begins to get more momentum, I find myself being able to take more small steps per day. That's really what it's about. First of all, for me, doing it every day. If I can possibly squeeze in even half an hour to get one paragraph a little better. But if I do that every day, what happens is I begin to get excited to open up the document and do another step. Because I feel like stepping works. I know how to step. I don't know how to do the whole thing, but I know how to make each step. The more you do that, the more you begin to say, oh, like for me lately, it's been, I do a step, I work an hour, I get a couple of pages better, and then I'm like, I need to take a break. So I come back the next day. That's the main thing about these 3 S's, taking small steps, not having to get everything perfect, but knowing that you can come around again, spiraling around to it later, and then feeling that snowball begin to roll down the hill. So these are some of the things I wanted to talk about. Hello, TT. Hello, Donna. Yeah, SSS. Okay, life is a small step every day. This is true. This is why I feel pretty good about it. Hi, Michael. Okay. How difficult was to find a precise representation of 20s Paris? Do you describe it? Yes, I will get to this because I'm going to be talking a lot about that. Let me just finish through these notes and then I will get to there. Hello, Blue Evolution Studio. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about this. One of the things that about this process, the small steps spiraling around, snowballing, hopefully. One of the things for me is that keeps me from taking these small steps every day is I always, this is a lifelong problem of mine, whatever I'm doing, there's a part of me saying, well, if I'm doing that, I'm not doing these 30 other things that I want to be doing. So the thing I'm working on always feels like actually an obstacle in the way of other things. You can't write that way. You can't live that way. So I very often in the past have started something, gotten really into it, being excited, and then I begin to think about other things I want to do, and it gets a little more difficult, and then I switch to another one. Eventually, I just have a whole lot of unfinished projects. What I would call bad spiraling, because I'm spiraling out of the project into another thing. Lately, when I do this every day, when I start to work on this every day, something changes and I begin to feel like I don't want to do those other things. I want to do this one. When the other things feel like stuff to get out of the way, to push aside so that I can focus on just doing this one every day, that's the snowball. That's how it begins to work, is that you begin to feel actually eager. You begin to, first of all, see that it can work and to see how it works, which makes you more confident to do the next tile. but also you begin to see that you're going to get it done, that it's going to be finished. That is the only way I know to have that happen is to continue this step by step every day. Hey, Gene, are you okay? I've been worried about you in the hurricanes. Okay. Let me keep going about this because I've got a couple other things I want to talk to. This idea of coming back to it another day, getting a little bit like saying, okay, in a particular scene, for instance, and there's one about the different artist groups, because there were different clashing groups, and they spent like every night, all night arguing about this at parties. It was a sprawling topic, so I had to drop in some rough notes and bits, and there were about 9 different topics within this chapter, this section. I first just went through because I had sketched them out at different times, and I put them all together in the document, and I looked at them, and then I had to just step away. When I come back the next day, I say, oh, well, look, the question is, first of all, what order do the pieces go in? It's like a mosaic within a mosaic. And also, what is their relation to each other? In other words, when you're reading, you want to sense that things are cause and affecting, that you are following these different topics because the narrator or the character is in some way trying to do something, and therefore these things either are obstacles or tools in their attempt to do things. In my case, I had to think, well, what is this character trying to do? He's trying to fit in. This guy is pretending to be a painter. He needs to fit in with these other painters. So then I had to think about how the different groups were obstacles, partly because they're intimidating. He doesn't understand them, partly because some of them he thinks are ridiculous. So that basically the next time through, I just started to put the objects, the different topics in different orders, and start to smooth them out. I'll try and show you a little bit about that. But like, I'll write 3 or 4 sentences that are sort of the same topic. Sometimes I'll write 2 or 3 different versions of the same idea without realizing it. So at a certain point, I just went through and said, okay, let me take all these sentences on this topic and put them all together. Because then I'm like, well, this sentence and this sentence, although both nice, they say the same thing. So then I either cut one, combine the 2. Each time I do that, this thing begins to develop some more narratives, some more narrative power. Because Tom, the narrator, is looking at the surrealists and trying to figure out how to fit in or how to deal with them. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is the concept of productive distractions. Because this is a personal thing for me. Maybe you don't have it. But productive distractions are, to me, the worst kind of distraction because they're dangerous. You can say it's absolutely worthwhile to pay those bills, to write that email, to clean out the kitchen, whatever it is that you're saying. I'm going to step away from my manuscript. I need to clear my mind. So I'm going to go make lunch. I'm going to go take care of that errand I have to take. Now, that feels so justifiable, so productive, that you can easily convince yourself that it's all right to not do the work, not open up the document and do your little small step. If you do your small step, give yourself a round of applause and a break and do whatever you want. But for me, what I've discovered is very often I have 1,000 productive, worthwhile, valuable things to do that I'm going to do instead of writing. That's the worst kind of distraction for me, the most dangerous kind, because all of a sudden a week has gone by and I haven't written a single small step. So, yes, exactly. As Haskell says, doing the dishes never feels more urgent than when I begin to write. Excellent. Okay, good. I'm glad that you are okay. That is a bit of light in a dark, dark story. Okay. Ricky is asking, is there an art critic? Yes, I will talk about that in a bit. Sometimes, Michael says, if I get an idea for scene 65, I can go back and expand other scenes. Yes, this is what I'm talking about with the spiraling, is sometimes, for instance, my book is in 4 sections, like I've said, 4 main sections. The first section is the one I've worked on the most. So I had to stop working on that and work on the other 3. And for months and months and months, I refused to even open the document of the first section. It's like, nope, just work on the other 3, build them up, and that was worthwhile. But the voice, the storytelling manner, is something I haven't quite figured out yet. I'm getting to it. And I have in the past, in script form, found myself obsessing over the first 4 or 5 scenes, the first 10 pages of a script, and writing them over and over and elaborating them and dealing, because I'm sort of getting the voice of the script, the style of the script, the method of it into my head, and then I can keep writing in that voice. But as a result, my openings are always way overwritten and my endings are really rushed. It's a real... And I was like, I don't want to do that this time. So I said, stay away from your opening quarter. Work on the last 3 quarters. But I've discovered, when I went back to the opening, I thought, oh my gosh, I've actually skimped on a lot of this. Like, there's a lot of stuff I haven't figured out. And what I've realized is, maybe for me, I do need to overwork some parts of it. I just need to. Maybe I need to spend that much time on the opening so that I can get that voice. In theory, could I do that with the end or the middle? Yes. But for some reason, it is helping to get this first quarter, even though I'm doing way too much work on it, getting that to work. I see all your comments, and I'm going to try and get to my other couple of topics, because I wanted to talk about a couple things. One of them is, in doing this, for instance, once again, to talk about this sequence where Tom is trying to describe the artist's community of the time that he's entering. I had to make a plan. I had to step back from the words and think, okay, what are the actual subject matters I need to cover, the topics? I needed to cover the surrealists and the social realists and the what were called the regionalists. There was a bunch of different artistic cliques. And so I made a list of those. And then eventually, as I was writing it, I had to start I had to rethink it. But I wouldn't have gotten to that rewriting place if I hadn't pulled back and stopped and made a plan, even though I then threw out the plan. And so one of the things I just wanted to mention is, sometimes you need to make a plan and spend time organizing or theorizing in order to get to the place where you can throw that out and just solve the problem in the words. Sometimes you need to step out and plan and get a concept that you can then go in and not really follow. That's at least in my experience, that's an important part of the work. The other thing for me, as I said, is coming to terms with the fact that I've taken on something that's harder than almost I've ever done. I've written 1 or 2 historical screenplays. And when I did that, I found the same thing. I would get so wrapped up in the research. I did one about the auto racing world in 1905. I was basing it on a book, so I had that book, but then I did a whole lot of other research. But when it came down to it, at least expressing the research was being compressed into the screenplay format, which allows so little detail. Now I'm finding myself with, in theory, unlimited amount of space and time and words. And so it's very ambitious for me, because I'm not just telling the story of this love triangle. I'm trying to get ideas insights or feelings about modern art, and also about the history of the 20th century. That's a lot. That's really a lot to try and get in when you're trying to work on paragraphs. And what I realized is that for a while then I just said, okay, forget about your big ambitions, just get the paragraphs. But now I'm getting to like a section about the painters. I have to talk about the art. I have to talk about something that isn't just the story. In doing that, I had to realize that your ambition, whatever you're doing, there's going to be a certain ambition in it. There's going to be a certain risk that you are taking, a thing that you're trying to accomplish that in theory is exciting but hard. Exciting, it's what you hope people will love about the work, but it will usually be something that you don't feel you necessarily have ever done before. Honestly, when you do something over and over and it becomes not scary to you, that's probably not good. The difficulty is to say to yourself, okay, I am trying to do something a little harder than I am used to because I think that will be the most exciting thing I can do. That'll be the best work. But it's harder for me than I am ready to handle. And for you, that may be just telling a story, just describing a character, whatever it is. It's always pushing one step past your known skills. Learning to accept that you do want to do that, because when you want to do it, it becomes the motivation. It becomes like, wow, if I can pull this off, it's going to be cool. On the other hand, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. So you need to hold on to the ambition because you want that, oh wow, if I can find a way to talk about art in this story, it will be great. On the other hand, I feel like I'm in way over my head. Accepting that situation is necessary in order to accomplish the thing you want to do. Taking a deep breath and saying, yes, I am going to push myself harder than I have pushed before, which you should always be doing a little bit, and accepting that means it's going to be harder than it would. It's not going to be easy. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to talk about just is this thing that's been really bugging me, which is this phrase, deliver the moment. It comes from a book, a memoir by a writer named John Gregory Dunn. He and his wife and writing partner in screens, Joan Didion, did work in Hollywood for a while. John Gregory Dunn wrote the novel and then the script for a phenomenal film noir called True Confessions with Robert De Niro and Robert Duvall. Beautiful, beautiful film noir. Anyway, this memoir that John Gregory Dunn wrote about working in Hollywood on a particularly difficult and disastrous project, it's called Monster by John Gregory Dunn. It's a book about working in Hollywood in the 80s. In reading it, there was frequent descriptions of sessions with the producers where they were getting criticism on the script. And there was this one producer, and I'm not sure which one it was, who kept saying this phrase, deliver the moment, over and over in this book. You see this phrase, deliver the moment, like it's like a challenge, an order, deliver the moment. And I'm not sure whether it was the main producers on this were Bruckheimer and Simpson. I think Simpson was still alive during it, or Scott Rudin. I'm pretty sure that this note, deliver the moment, came from Scott Rudin. Scott Rudin is a famous, marvelously ambitious and accomplished producer who is also notoriously one of the biggest asses to ever have anyone work for them. He's monstrous. There's actually a whole movie called Swimming with Sharks about the tortures of working as an assistant to a producer like this, modeled on Scott Rudin. Scott Rudin, but also Jerry Bruckheimer and Don Simpson were monstrous. They were doing that. There's a reason this book is called Monster. So this annoying deliver the moment would just pissed me off. However, I found it haunts me because it's exactly right. The fact is, the job at any moment of writing a narrative, a script, or a novel is to deliver the moment. Like when I have this idea about this guy summarizing the art scene that he is entering in 1936, that's the moment. I have to deliver that moment. I have to deliver the weird, overwhelming social sphere of this place. That's the moment. And I need to, in order to do that, make each of the different groups vivid. That's delivering that moment. That's all that moment is for, is Tom feeling he is in over his head, but then at the end of it, he's going to discover that he can pull off this deception. And part of the reason is because one of the types of artist is a very is what's called regionalists in the period, doing very American scene painting, and he chooses for various reasons he's in that school in his fraud, which allows him to do a certain kind of cowboy aw shucks, I don't like to talk about my art persona, which helps him to survive this crazy theorizing group. So then it occurred to me, well, then I need to probably put the realists at the end. I need to put the regionalist artists, as I described the groups, get to that end so that I can end it with Tom saying, by being in that group, I survived. That's the moment. To understand the moment and then think, how can I deliver that? Deliver the moment. Every tile in the mosaic is a moment. So that's what's to me exciting, is to remember, oh, that's my job. My job is to deliver the moment. This is this moment. What is it? How do I define it? And then what will make it work? What specific technique? For instance, in the movie, just to take this type of moment, the moment where somebody has to enter a new social scene. There's a movie called Goodfellas, where there's a sequence in the movie where the main character is describing this mob world that he's in. And the way it's filmed and made, delivering this moment, is a long, slow motion point of view tracking shot through a bar. And as it's looking at the different faces, the voiceover is talking about who these people are and what they're like. They're so-and-so, they're so-and-so, he does this. That is the moment of defining this mob milieu in the 1970s, I think, in that case. The point is, in film terms, the way that's accomplished, the way it's delivered is it's a voiceover with a point of view, which is in itself a snazzy, ambitious thing to do. And this uninterrupted tracking shot is this other sort of show-offy accomplishment. Then in order to make that work, they had to do the production design that would be something to look at, and the casting of these different people, and then getting them to act like their characters. The point is, that's how you deliver that moment. I need to turn my screen mentality to novels and say, how do I do that? I understand how to do it in film. How do I do it just in words? But at least knowing that's the task, that's the job, is kind of exciting, because I can give myself, it's a specific problem. This moment is about meeting these people. I'm going to do another moment later where he goes to a rich people's party. He's never been to such a fancy place. It's not going to really get into all the people because we're never going to meet them again, as opposed to the artists who we're going to spend the rest of the book with. So this is more about the drama of what it's like to be among the rich and have this personal drama with one of the characters. Each moment I have to deliver that moment. The first way that you learn to deliver the moment is to define what the moment is. What is it I'm trying to deliver? What makes this scene unique and exciting, in whatever way it is exciting? Okay, so I just want to talk about that concept of delivering the moment. Now let me go back and check your questions and comments. Okay. All right, comments. Doreen, my productive distractions are research. Yes, exactly. I'm not writing or editing, but I work in my book. I think I do that way too much. Me also. One of the things I do is I say, well, I can't really be, I can't work. I can't write. I'll go read my research books. I've got a whole shelf of them over there, plus many more at the library. Plus all this stuff I've gotten online because there's all these resources online that I took. I'll spend hours doing that and feel great, but a part of me is thinking, this is not delivering the moment. This is not making a new tile. So yes, it's very easy. Or sometimes when I'm working on something, I'll be like, well, I'm working on a Western. I have to go watch 30 Westerns. That's 30 days I'm not working on my script. Okay. For Haskell, not the Bryant, world building is his productive distraction. Okay. Research and preparation. Yes, exactly. I think we all know this. The reason I'm bringing it up is not to feel bad, but to remind myself when my crafty, distraction-prone brain says, you're feeling stress over this, go do this other thing, it's productive. To say, no, you may be feeling stress over doing another tile, you may be feeling overwhelmed, just do one small tile. Just get the stress so small that you can survive it. Because that eventually turns from stress into fun. It turns into a challenge of like, ooh, great. Now I know how to do this. I can get this next paragraph, just a paragraph. That for me has been an important solution. Okay. Wow. I never thought about the illusion of productivity when doing another task or anything. I usually do. Because mostly we focus on what wastes time, not what gives them the illusion. Right, exactly. We all know that it's not good to go, boozing for the afternoon instead of writing. But if we're doing research or if we're cleaning the house or whatever, we feel, oh, this is productive. It counts. It counts in life, sure, but it does not count towards delivering the moment, adding a tile to the mosaic. That is the job. Briefly want to just say, because Jean was in the course of, in the path of the hurricane and lost power for a while. So we were just saying how glad we were she was okay. Feng is asking, what happens when you throw out the plan? Do you write another plan? No, that's my point. At a certain point, the plan doesn't matter. The text, the words, the scene, whatever it is, that is the plan. It's like you can plan the sculpture, but eventually you're going to have to actually carve the stone and get the sculpture to look like you plan it. Eventually, you have to step away from planning altogether and solve the problem in the words. And what I found is that you don't solve it all at once. That I can say, okay, now no plan. Like I understand what I'm planning. I understand what I want to do. But now, how do I do that with these 6 sentences that don't seem to go together? Or these 2 ideas that both seem to have a dead stop? How do I make the scene travel through them? In other words, at a certain point, the plan doesn't matter. It's very important to have the plan, but at a certain point, the question is, how is this plan being translated into the concrete issue of this bunch of words? All right. Ricky's saying, when I'm stuck with writing, I make soup, chop up all the vegetables in my fridge in my garden, and add, yes, it is indeed, it always feels good, and it is good. It's good to eat and fuel yourself. It's just not going to get the book done. Okay. Sanchez Pablo says, hi, Glenn. You said the screenplay format is limited space. Then do you choose what detail to put on the page with so many exciting things in historical film? Yes, that is exactly right. And it's true of a novel too. No matter how much you think you have all the room in the world in a novel, the truth is it's a limited space. There's only so much that the reader is going to want to read. Even if you had 50 pages, which I do, of excellent research on the abstract expressionist painters, nobody wants to read that in the middle of another story. You have to weave those details in where they are relevant to the story. I'm not writing a history book. I'm writing a story set in history. So the question is, in a screenplay, I had to learn, okay, I'm going to have this scene where I describe an auto race. And that scene lasts like 6-7 pages. But that's still only a certain amount of sentences because the screenplay sentences are broken up much more. So when it came to it, I had to think, okay, I'm going to describe this setting. I've got about 2 paragraphs to do that, tops. And that's what I did. I have to choose a few details. Likewise, among these surrealist artists, the surrealist artists are a fascinating topic. I could easily spend pages and pages. I have to get it down to 2 or 3 paragraphs tops. And the way that you choose is, how do these vivid details that I want to convey relate to the characters? If the character is attracted to this vivid detail or repelled by it, or it's an obstacle towards their goal, that's when you begin to understand how writing works, not just how knowing works, but conveying information, conveying a world by putting a character in it. That's the job. That character needs to relate to the ideas. Okay. How do you decide when the time to stop researching and go to work? I have found that it isn't a like research then writing. To me, it's a research in your off hours. Sometimes you take a week or 2 and stop and do a lot of research, but then eventually you need to get it in there. So to me, it's a constant back and forth, because sometimes I will say, I need to do this research in order to know what I'm going to write. But sometimes I will say, I need to write this scene and, I'm going to need to describe a bar. I'd better research what bars looked like in 36 because I don't know. So it's to me a back and forth. It is not research then write. It is a constant flow as long as I am not stopping writing. And that writing may be outlining if it's early in the process. At this point in my process, I need to get the words on the page. So that's the main goal. Research it only is allowed when it's not stopping me from doing that. When if I do my hour, if I do an hour and get one little 3-page section 20% better, okay, now I can go research. I was waiting for the punchline because it's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, me too. The punchline is, no matter how much you might hate the person who's saying something, or just wish that they weren't right. Sometimes people are right when they're not good people. And I mean, Jerry Bruckheimer, I'm sure, is a perfectly fine person. I don't know. I know that Don Simpson and Scott Rudin were very troubled producers. Do you decide the finale of the screenplay or novel before you start writing it? I do, because of my general. I don't know how to write without knowing the ending. This video talks a lot about this idea. So please take a look. I'll put a link down at the bottom of this description when I'm done with this episode. But basically, I personally don't know how to write without having planned out basically every single scene. Sometimes, bits and pieces come to you and you write those down, but I don't personally know how to write without planning the ending. What happens when you finally figure out how to write that part and a friend calls you up for a drink at the bar at the very moment? Do you write or do you go to the bar? Almost always, Roberta, the answer is see if they can wait an hour. At least write a little bit. If every day, and this is hard, I don't do it every day, but I try. every day to do just a little. Because truthfully, what's going to happen is there will come a time. I was just talking to a writer friend of mine who's about a year ahead of me in this process of writing his novel. And he was talking about how at a certain point, you start to see, it's like, oh yeah, this is, you start to actually want to spend time on it. You want to get back to it. You actually like doing it because it's working. It's making sense. It exists. And the way it came to exist was all those little building blocks, those little tiles that you put together. And then eventually you look at it, you go, ooh, now I can see how I have to polish that tile and I have to change the color of that tile. But you're working on something that you're excited to do. So the important thing is to not delay that by not doing one tile a day. That's, for me, the answer. Ricky says, go to the bar. Maybe. I am not one to tell you whether or not you should or should not live your life. I am going to tell you that the only way work gets done is if you do a little bit of it, at least. Donna, oh, we're debating the bar. Do you consider yourself a writer? And how important is capturing that part to you? And from experience, ask your friend to wait and write that part. Exactly. My feeling is, if it's something that you can just say, hey, can you hang on a second? I got to get this. I was this very morning talking to my wife, who was about to go off to work, and I suddenly had something I wanted to write down for this. It was the Deliver the Moment thing, actually. I wanted to remember to include Deliver the Moment in this live stream. I said, hold on, walked to the other room, jotted down Deliver the Moment in my notes for this live stream, went back. People will wait usually. And if they can, it's like, I'll catch you, I'll text me later. You know, that's how you, ideally, you ask for a limited amount of time and take it. Okay. Have you ever typed so hard during rewriting that you hurt your hand? I grazed my fingers. I have not grazed it. I have sort of gotten crampy, yes. And I have certainly damaged keyboards. So yes, that can happen. Can you suggest any strategy for outlining a plot that spans a 20-episode run? My basic, I don't see if you can answer. We only have 8 minutes. I don't know if you've seen my two outline videos, why outline and how to outline. But that's going to be my answer to anything, which is my suggestion for outlining a plot that spans a 20-episode run is, first of all, think about, are you planning to write all 20 episodes? If not, you need to just sketch out the rough shape of the 20 and you just write the first one. But if you're actually planning to write 20 for yourself, cool, big, that's a lot of work. But if you're having fun and you want to do it, just recognize that were you to get financing for something that runs 20 episodes, they would want you to write it with them. The company, no company finances 20 episodes of something without having a lot of opinions about what goes into those 20 episodes. But as a writing issue, as a writing problem, you're simply breaking a story into 20 pieces. So essentially, I mean, I would personally do it by making 20 little outlines, so like an outline for each episode. And then you have a bigger sort of outline of outlines, you know, the big story. That's how I would do it. But everyone does it differently. Yes, I think we've all, I think the good thing about any good scene is that it will be fairly universal at some primitive level. It doesn't matter if you're in the UK or anywhere, wherever you are, that's not your home base, you're going to feel like an outsider. That's a normal thing. So that is why I'm using that familiar feeling to describe an unfamiliar place. If I just describe the unfamiliar place, some people would be like, what do I care? But by putting it in the terms of a person who we like, who is trying to fit in, hopefully that will make this more readable. I guess the key to Deliver the Moment is to find the right words that will give the reader the ability to imagine and understand the moment or sentence. Yes. which requires having a solid understanding. Yes, this is actually very accurate. Delivering the moment does. It means eventually you need to understand what the moment is, and then you need to find what form will deliver it. That's why it's actually a really good phrase. I hate to say it, but it is. As I use the example of Goodfellas, but there's other examples where somebody will like do the opposite. And he felt like the form, in our case, the words when you're writing a novel, but the form of a traveling shot, or the form for me of having Tom describe artists in general, and then saying among them there were many fighting groups, and then describing 3 or 4 groups. That gave me the shape. And then the words for each one, I'm going to have to find the vibrant feeling that Tom gives, because remember, he is narrating this from his future. He's looking back on what it was like, which allows him to summarize. So that's going to be the voice, the style. Okay. How about you find the script is novel is not working? Will you make a new plan for the rewrite? Or won't make? Yes, no, of course. If you, at various times, whenever you are writing, you will constantly be going back and forth from delivering the moment, from writing the scene, from getting the text, to stepping back and saying, does this work in a grand sense? Is this the right story? Are these characters making sense? So you're constantly going back and forth. It's never, I get the idea, I solve the problem, I write the details, I'm done. It's always, I get the idea, I write the details, oh, that shows me that there's some problems, I go back to the idea, and then I figure out the solution to that problem, and then I go back to the words, and I put that in, and then I see another problem, and then I go back, you go back and forth. It's always the spiral process as far as I have experienced it. You never just have, we're settling this and then we're doing this. There's always a back and forth as you refine it until it gets clearer and clearer and you make your choices. Another similar screenwriting YouTube teacher tells that he wrote a movie about a 1910 war story, but the producer tells him to change it to a modern setting, and he did it. Would you do the same? For enough money? Probably. There are certain projects which I say, I will not change this for the money, and therefore they mostly don't get made. Or you're working for hire, and if somebody says change it, even though it's a disastrous change in your view, or just a whole new idea, yeah, that's the job. What emotion do you want to invoke in your reader when they read about the 20s art? Well, the emotion I want to evoke, first of all, is a certain sense of excitement and wonder, like, wow, this is actually kind of cool and interesting. But the point of all this is that it is setting up the evolution of modern art into the next phase, which will come later in the story, which is abstract expressionism, which has not yet been thought of at the moment that my story takes place. So the answer is there's a bunch of different things. One is a certain emotion of excitement at discovering this world of cliques that are all so passionate about this thing. That's cool to the guy. The thing itself is exotic. The emotion I want is a certain awe at its exoticism. Okay, no more comments, please. Research. I recently got bogged down researching a regional restaurant, but the research of dishes and atmosphere freed me to write the scenes in that setting that I was previously having trouble with. Exactly. Sometimes you'll do that while you're writing. You'll say like, oh, I have to figure out what's on the menu at this place. Let me stop writing, go look at some menus online, and then you come back and you write, oh, mashed potatoes with gravy, and that gives you texture. That makes that tile a little more fabulous, and that's what we want. Hi, Darian. Other times you need to research the restaurant before you come up with the scene. It's a constant progress. Deliver the moment. Is this the same as being in the moment with your character, or is it a step back? It is both. It is not exactly the same. Being in the moment means you are trying to understand and experience and convey what a character is feeling at that moment. Delivering the moment may mean stepping back and saying, what am I trying to convey in this scene? I'm trying to convey excitement at the exotic. Okay, now I have to go into the moment of being excited by the exotic and talk about, well, what specifically is exotic? Is it the way they dress? Is it the way they talk? Do they have some kind of rituals? What is it that's exotic? Because now I've defined that. Okay. I recently finished my spec screenplay, but find the finale originally set up in my outline doesn't make sense. Should I stick to the original plan? No. No. We constantly change. All writing, but especially screenwriting, is a process of constantly changing and adapting it, learning and working on it. Ideally, you are working towards the original emotional goal or aesthetic goal or conceptual goal, even if the mechanics are different. But sometimes you actually say, I have to change the goal. Maybe this story about a serial killer has to stop glamorizing serial killers. I was sort of into the serial killer thing, but I'm realizing right now that ending, he shouldn't get away with it. So you may actually change your concept as you work. That happens. Okay. Damn you all says, I have no friends to tempt me with a bar. That's why God gave me ADHD. Otherwise, I'd be unstoppable. That's okay. Me too. To a certain extent, I got to say, I have relatively few people calling me to go out to a bar. And that's probably a good thing because I don't know what I would say to them. Okay. Ask them to wait. Fortunately, life isn't a play. We all know how this is. You make your choices, you experiment, you see. Ask them to wait how long, or see if you can, if you got to go out to the bar and you're going to take a taxi over there or an Uber, maybe you can write it down while you're in the Uber. I don't know. You are welcome, Rhett. Okay. A lot of screenwriting gurus over $1,000 mentorship to private tutor. Is something worth the money? Please do look at this. Screenwriting rules. The basic answer is things are worth different things to different people. It depends on what it costs, like what $1,000 is to you. If you have $1,000 to spend and that's okay, then it could be worth it. It depends on what you think you're going to get for the money. I would say don't do anything because you believe it is going to unlock the door to success. Do it because you feel like you would value what you're learning and you can afford to essentially lose that money because you are giving away that money and you're not getting it back. If you have the money, do it. If you want to, you don't. It's not like you have to. You can survive perfectly well without paying anybody anything. On the other hand, if you feel a special power of this person's thinking, if you feel especially inspired or they seem to express things to you in an especially clear way for you, because everyone is different, maybe it's worth it. But only if you are going to be able to live your life in a comfortable way without that money. Oh, yes, that's true. The screenwriting step-by-step video. For those of you who want to see how I personally process outlining and writing, it's called Screenwriting Step-by-Step. Let me see if I have. Do I have this here? No, I don't. Okay. Screenwriting Step-by-Step. It's a playlist on my channel. It's 260 something hours of me showing you how I do it. Hello, Angela. Angela Maurice Johnson says, is there a thing as taking too much time to finish something? How to stop analyzing and revising, outlining and revising and reconsidering the characters' want and send the story out for feedback. Fear of the work being bad. That is an ongoing issue for everybody. When is it done? The answer is when you've done it as well as you can at the moment. Then just remember, nothing should be that important. When you say sending it out, do you mean sending it out to professionals? Don't send it out to agents until you've had other people read it. My answer would be, is there such a thing as spending too much time outlining and revising and reconsidering? Yes. At a certain point, get it into the words, get it into the scenes, deliver the moment. If you're only theorizing, if you're only planning, do remember part of today's lesson is sometimes you need to make a plan to get to a place where you throw it out. At a certain point, all that matters is the exact way that you are going to express that thing. And so therefore you have to write the words. Then try and revise the words as best you can, and then you're done. Move on. Show it to someone. Don't show it to someone high stakes. Show it to someone low stakes and get a sense of it. This is an ongoing process. It's not an all or nothing thing. I would say that it is very easy to spend too much time outlining and not enough time writing, because the writing is going to teach you new things. So don't just outline. But if you've written a draft and then re-outlined it and reconsidered it and changed it, and you write a new draft, and you've done that a few times, when you feel like it's pretty good, send it out. If you never feel like anything's good, get it to where you think it's coherent and try it out on people. The main thing is, don't be afraid to show stuff to people. Don't show it to people who don't like you. Wait until you've got yourself into a confident state, and then you show it to those people. Just try it out on people. That's the only way. If you can't decide, if you don't have a feeling of, I like this, because sometimes people just don't have enough confidence in their own work, or they just have, frankly, emotional problems which don't allow them to enjoy their own creativity. Work on that. Work on getting to the point where you like it. Work on just like, well, what do I like? Do I think this is pretty good? Yeah, it's pretty good. Show it to people. But don't submit it to, a contest or a publisher or something that costs money until you've gotten some sense of whether or not it works. However, after a while, you'll just decide, I think it's good enough, I'm sending it. Why did my U.S. manager tell me to stop putting Spanish in my script? I am from Mexico. I speak Spanish. Why can't I put Spanish directly on the page when a Mexican shows up? Well, I believe their answer is they believe that enough people don't read Spanish to make it make sense. So that therefore, assuming that it's only English speakers who are reading it, then you want to have Spanish characters speaking Spanish, but you want to write it in English, indicating that it will be spoken in Spanish. Like all the dialogue in italics is in Spanish, but subtitled. And then you can write whatever you want in English eventually down the line. If the question is, should characters not be speaking Spanish? Yes, there's many. I'm not saying that's good. I'm saying there are many producers and distributors who feel most of their audience won't read subtitles. So therefore, they don't want characters speaking in another language. Is that good? No. Is that their job? Yes, that's their job. They know you can't put large sections of Spanish onto, some dumb CBS procedural, mystery show. Okay, Fung has another solution to the bar thing. Why not write it in the bar? Fair enough, Fung Bukowski, as Husko says. Okay, Bukowski has some good points, though. That's absolutely true. I am not going to say don't write it in the bar. Maybe you should. Okay, I got to go. Uh, who could ask for more than useful and fun on a Monday? Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will see you all next week. Have yourselves a fabulous time. Until then, go write something.